Do good work is not a label, but a way of living. It is the constant and diligent effort to achieve a new level of excellence in one's own life. It is the hidden inner beauty behind the struggle to achieve excellence. It's not perfect, but imperfect. It is the effort, discipline, and focus that often goes unnoticed. The goal of Do Good Work is to highlight that drive. The guests I have on this show emulate this drive in their own special way. You'll be able to apply new ideas into your own life by learning from them. We will also have one-on-one episodes with me where we'll dive into my own experience with entrepreneurship and leadership. Every episode is designed to provide you with ideas that you can apply and grow in excellence in all areas of your life, business, and career. Today I have on the show Kate Nowlan. Kate is the co-founder and former COO of GRACEDBYGRIT and is currently serving as a director of the boards at HYLETE, the GRACEDBYGRIT Foundation, and San Diego Sport Innovators. Kate and her former business partner and co-founder of GRACEDBYGRIT, Kimberly Caccavo, published a book called Grace by Grit, the Entrepreneurial Woman's Guide to Starting a Business with Power, Passion, and Purpose. In the book, Kate and Kimberly share their experiences, lessons learned, and values that they feel are important to build a successful company and team, and inspirational stories of women within their Grace by Grit community. Their foundation, the Grace by Grit Foundation, is the legacy that lives on from the brand Grace by Grit, where Kate serves as the president since 2009 and is now a board member. The foundation scholarship helps young women attending college for athletics and academics. They help empower young girls to become gritty and go on to in the workplace to really shine and make a difference. Kate is raising two teenage girls here in Cardiff by the Sea, California, and enjoys spending time with those she loves, soaking up the SoCal sun, breathing the fresh ocean air, and occasionally catching a wave. Well, Kate, thanks so much for being on today.
Thanks for having me.
So, Kate, as I read your book, and I don't like condensing things too simply, but I love the fact that I can look at your book and see two common themes throughout, even if it's when you're hiring someone, creating new opportunities and new positions, like hybrid positions before we were been forced to create hybrid positions, but also creating community. And the two big themes around empowerment and in community, both in your brand and how you operate your business. Was that intentional when you first started Grace by Grit?
It's a great question. And those words are just, they're how I live my life, I think, from the very beginning. So yes, in a way it was intentional because for both myself and my former business partner and co-founder of Grace by Grit, we really both wanted to create a brand that was about a community. And so it was about bringing women specifically together to support one another. And we also, in that same, on that same side of the coin, wanted them to be empowered, to feel stronger because they were part of that community and they were supported by those other women. And I mean, the name itself, that's what it really represents, graced by grit, that you have these tough moments in life and how you get through them become your graces. Well, we wanted women to feel like they could share those stories, and share their narrative and have that community. And then they have that toughness and strength to go out there. They're empowered to go out there and conquer whatever else it is that comes their way.
So it's almost like a reflection of personality as well as, real life meeting idealism. Because I mean, when I first got introduced to you, right, I was on your mission. I didn't know what you were doing, but I love this. I can back this up 100%. I haven't checked out your website yet, but I know based on the words and the descriptors, like grit is strength, discipline, honor, trustworthiness, and then also talking about the grace that comes behind that. And I thought that was so poetic the way that you put it. But can you talk about, I guess, the difference when you were focusing on creating a legacy brand versus just creating a topical brand, like a brand just about the product or service itself or the product itself?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are such powerful words. And fortunately, grit is very popular. And I think heard it a lot over the last 8 years in particular, which I love. But for myself and Kimberly, it was very much about what if we're going to create something and spend time on it and build this from the ground up, where it really represents our values and it represents the quality of of work that we want to put into it, everything from the products that we're designing to the team that we're building, that has a lot of emotion tied to it for us. And maybe it's, because we're emotional women, I don't know, which I take as a big compliment, but I think that emotional piece meant for us that it wasn't just like, we're going to sell leggings and we just want to sell as many as we possibly can.
Yeah.
That was definitely like, if that's what we're interested in doing, like, I'm going to walk away, that door is getting shut. But it was very much like this was tied in, like when we did the branding to the name, everything became more emotional and we became more invested in it, that it was like, this is truly legacy, because it also stood for something greater than ourselves. It stood for a time in history that women are looking and, challenging the structure that exists currently in terms of equity and leadership, and how they get to the top of at companies, and the power behind women starting businesses and building things. So it stood for a lot within that. So I think the legacy brand was, although we certainly wanted it to be a legacy, I don't think we thought of it that way, even though that's what we were building, if that makes sense. I mean, we knew we didn't want the, like, okay, just buy a 10 leggings.
Just buy a product and see you later. It's more, it was something that people can buy into, and not just that, but a mission that you can be attached to, even if you're buying the leggings for yourself or for a gift, right? So that's what I really liked. And one of the stats, though, that is early on in your book, it kind of caught my attention. I didn't believe it at first. I couldn't believe it, right? That 2.2% of capital investment goes to women-led businesses.
It's gone up.
How much?
It's gone up. I believe in the VC world, it's 6%.
Okay.
Now. But
6%. So the stat that I read was like, okay, 1.9 billion versus 85.
Yeah.
That's pretty staggering. So when it comes to that, how did you tie in the mission of, we're selling athletic wear for women with specific needs? This wasn't just a random athletic wear, it was safety needs, needs that your community was telling you about. But how did you tie that to the bigger cause of how do you empower women?
That's great questions. So, I would say part of the storytelling that we did, part of our marketing, I guess you could even say, was about the stories that women had. So what were those things in their life that they had overcome? What were those tough times? And it wasn't just like, there was horrible, tragic things that we heard about, someone with cancer and then their husband left them. It was like, you'd hear these things, right? And then what they made of themselves after was always the inspiring part.
Yeah.
But it was also, so many times we hear these stories of, I was passed up for the job because it was a guy that got the job and not me. Or it was these types of professional stories too that would come along that were really speaking to what we were standing behind. And it was like, okay, wait a minute, we're in the same boat now, because we're also a company that's trying to grow. We want to raise capital. And so we were going out to VCs and private equity and angel investors and family offices and looking for capital, and ultimately realizing that they weren't investing in us, and that statistically, they probably wouldn't be investing in us. And so we were even facing that as we were trying to grow our business. Plus, we're hearing stories about women with this inequity. And it was like, we need to share this in a bigger platform, right? And so we need to share these women's stories about what they're facing and how they've overcome it. So it's not just the wham, it's what did they do? What actions did they take when that moment happened? What did they do with that moment? And I think that's really what the empowering part started to happen, because you start to look at the action that comes from it, and it gives other people confidence. It's sort of like, unfortunately, this virus, right? It's like, it spreads. Well, guess what? When you do really positive things and you start to tell people you can do this, and you've got an entire tribe of women standing behind you, that spreads too. And so it was really wonderful to hear how people overcame things, to hear what they did with those gritty moments in their life. And, that ultimately, I think was the biggest gift of the entire thing for us.
And I love that, because you also tie in community there as well. It's not just, like you mentioned, bringing awareness to something. It's bringing awareness with a clear path of, hey, others are doing this. These others are just like you, or have gone down paths similar to yours.
what you can do is possible. And that in itself, it unlocks something in the back of our minds that like, hey, I can do this. I
Yep.
am capable. I'm that person. So when you were developing the community events, when you were developing community internally, externally, what was your intentions for like how you were driving this together? Were you just creating community events as you grew, or did you have the entire idea of a global community that you wanted to build around Grace by Grit?
It was both at the same time, actually. So we knew we were primarily wanting to focus online. So we, from the very beginning, wanted to be direct to consumer and e-commerce focused.
Mm-hmm.
But the events themselves, all of these community events that we put together, was how we acquired the online database, right? So it was authentically acquiring the right customers that then had an incredible experience with us in person.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the events themselves that were in-person community events, those were always, well, I mean, I would say I don't even know a single event that we did where we didn't give back. So we always offered whoever was the hostess of the event
Mm-hmm.
to tie the event to the charity that they felt most passionate about.
Okay.
And so every single event, women knew that they were coming and they were supporting something that was really important to the hostess.
Mm-hmm.
And so they got to feel like they were doing something great when they were buying the clothes. Plus, we got to share our story and share why this community now was so important to us. And that it wasn't just going away the minute, we packed up our bags and left Chicago and flew back to San
Continue
Diego.
the story, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly. And they got into that funnel with us then to build that online community. And there was a lot of women that were really interested in becoming influencers for us. And those were women that maybe just had the gift of gab. They didn't even care about social media, but they were like, look, I know every Sally in town and she is going to love this stuff. Right. And I want to wear it because I believe in what you're doing, but I want my discount code instead to be applied to like a commission. I want that to go to the MS Society and so that momentum, that give.
Wow.
So we always called it the grit, the grace, and the give, because if you don't have the give part in your life, then you don't get the other parts either. So we always tied that in. And that was a big part of growing that online community too, was we had these influencers that shared their stories, and then we would do blogs and features and build content around it. None of the marketing that we did and any of the content that we put together was paid models. We always utilized customers or friends of customers or friends of employees of the brand, because we wanted to showcase real women that were actually out there. And so I think that was another really big factor for us for the online community is everyone knew that what they were seeing was authentic. They were seeing a nurse that was from DC that was also really into yoga, that loved the land and sea knickers. You know what I mean? Like there was a lot of relatability to what we were doing that made being part of the community so much fun
Made
and
it real.
Exactly.
With that specifically, and I want to dive in later on how you talk about grit and how you incorporate even the book, like, hey, you should sleep well, you should be physically active. And one of my favorite quotes personally, and I posted this like early on, is like, how you do anything is how you do everything. But specifically, your giving component came out a lot, and you created a foundation towards that. Can you speak to us how the formation of the foundation came through and some of the impact it's doing today?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the foundation actually came from that community. So community being, really a key word here, but when we were out on the road hosting these events, and we had women going all over the country from San Diego to host the events, because it just couldn't be me and my former business partner. But when those women were out there were so many women that were attending that had young girls. They had daughters or nieces or grandchildren, and they were constantly saying, how do I teach my daughters to have grit? How do I give them this tool that if they get knocked back, they get knocked down, they can get back up and fight another day? Like, how do I teach that? And we were really fortunate that one of the women that worked for us is actually a teen coach. And so she had an extremely gritty moment, moved across the country, and saw a Facebook ad for Grace by Grit and said, okay, I want to do a free internship for you guys. And we were like, free? Sure, come on in. And we were like, a year and a half in, and it was like, I didn't even tell if we could we were so busy. And within a week, we're like, okay, we're paying you. You are so valuable. And she worked for us in sales because she needed to make money, but she also knew it was a great opportunity for her to network for her teen coaching business. Well, needless to say, she heard this enough, and she came to us and said, we really have an opportunity, and we have this community already that's been formed to create a program that talks about grit with young women and teaches them how to cultivate it within themselves and how to be inclusive as young women to help bring each other up, right? Instead of climbing on each other's shoulders to get to the top, how do we build women up to be supporting one another? And so we started this Gritty Girls program that was really successful. And then when we sold the company, we thought, gosh, it would be a shame for the Gritty Girls program to just be gone. Let's really talk about how do we really make a legacy now with Graced by Grit. And so we created a foundation. So we created the Graced by Grit Foundation, and we took it one step further, where we're really, our mission is that we are discovering and we are helping to build the next generation of female leaders. And we're doing that through events like the Gritty Girl events that we used to host that talk about grit. And we have a whole methodology to that. We're also doing a mentorship program. So high school girls are mentored by college girls, and college girls are mentored by young professionals to help them with those big stepping stones in life. And then we have a collegiate scholarship fund that we're giving out to young women that participate in sports at school, obviously too, have good grades. But so these young women, the reason that we're focusing specifically on the athletics is because we know that young women that participate in sports, and the longer they do, have a better chance of professional success. Plus, the foundation of what you're learning by being on a team is incredibly valuable for a career, right? It's building teamwork, it's building leadership, it's learning how to fail, it's learning how to win. So anyway, so we started this whole foundation and bundled that all up together. And that is really where the focus is today for Graced by Grit. So the Graced by Grit Foundation, we're launching the mentorship program next month. We gave out a scholarship last year to a young woman here in San Diego that went off to college to play soccer. And it was, oftentimes those scholarships can be life-changing for people. So we're just getting started in terms of the foundation. We have a lot of more exciting things coming down the pipeline too.
So creating community, not just by the business, but by the impact itself, but then also now mentorship, helping what's the age group? Is it high school, middle school, going into high school?
It's high school primarily is our focus. High school and college, I should say, is our focus. So we have an event next month in Cleveland, although it's virtual now. It's called Get Gritty Cleveland. And so these are high school girls, so ages 13 to 17, 18. And they're going to have a day of learning about grit. So they're going to be attending a full day workshop. There's speakers, a keynote speaker. They have breakaway sessions, and it follows all this methodology surrounding it. So they truly understand how to cultivate that within themselves. They role play lots of things too, in terms of conversations that are difficult to have. And then they talk a lot about the community and how community is incredibly important for young women to thrive, and that you have to figure out how to create your own community. And so, I think community is obviously the theme of our conversation, but it definitely passed down from the Graced by Grit brand now to the foundation, because it's essential. And the beauty of also having a wonderful community with the brand is that those people are incredibly supportive of the foundation and want to see it succeed too, because they believe even, in their hearts more about what the mission is.
What
now
you're doing.
Part of it. Yeah.
Do you get most of your funding from customers and from the brand side, the business side?
So our funding comes from HYLETE, which is the company that acquired Graced by Grit, and they're doing that. They made a commitment that 1% of the women's athletic line goes to the foundation. So that funds the scholarships and the programs right now. We're actually building out our corporate sponsorship deck right now, because we've had a lot of people reaching out saying we want to sponsor, or we do have individuals that sponsor, by the way. You can go right to the website, you can donate. And that is, we're super grateful when people go on there and feel inclined, because there's not a whole lot of call to actions that we put out there to the world. It's sort of a discovery that they come to us at this point. But we have a lot of people reaching out and going, okay, I believe in this, and the time is now, because people want to see young women being built to be these future leaders, to invest in them now. And so many companies, I think, that maybe had a little bit of a slap on the wrist with some of the most recent stuff in terms of how they, where they spend their money and how they really, the culture that they've created, right? That they have some cleanup to do now. And so where are they putting their money, and what programs are they putting it for, and what are they supporting for the future, so that the world can look the way we both believe it to? So it's been really exciting. So yes, so please look at gracedbygrit.com and you'll see all of that there.
No, that's exciting. And I think it is powerful. And like I don't have a daughter yet, maybe one day I will, God willing, but this is something that I know that she would have to look into. This is something that I know that I would want her to learn and cultivate into and to develop into, because even for myself, right, when, again, talking about the first introduction that we've had, like, I think it was a mutual connection, and just over an email, like, she's about this, this, and this, like, hey, that's kind of my lifestyle.
Right. Like instantly you're like, okay, I can
Yeah,
drive that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love the fact that, I mean, even though community is a theme in this conversation, I think it's a theme in our world right now, and how we're fostering community and supporting other communities. And with what you've been seeing, what you've been doing, what are some of the new needs that you're helping fill with the women community startup entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So, it's ironic. I just sort of got the chills again thinking, today's September 11th while we're recording this here, and you talk about community and what that represented, the what happened after in terms of people stepping up. It didn't matter who you were, and the wonderful stories that came of that, of people coming together and grieving together, and what
Hmm.
that community meant. So I the relevance is all so much more important. But some of the work that I'm doing, for obviously the foundation itself, I think that mentorship program is going to be so essential. I think for young women in particular, I think having somebody that you can look up to that's gone down the path, that you can ask the tough questions that maybe you're afraid to ask other people, or that you can have that extra support and guidance when you're out there, is just invaluable. So I think, all of us should have a mentor in our life. And, I think that we all know that. And it doesn't, no matter what stage you are in life, in your career, in your education, I think it's just invaluable. So that's something that I'm really proud of. I do also do that myself on the side, and I help with an organization here in San Diego Sport Innovators, where I
Hmm.
help with some mentorship for some startups. And I love that work, because to see someone that's so hungry and has an idea and they're ready to conquer the world with it, and having gone through that and being able to add that expertise, and also just, it's that energy to be around it is incredibly
It's
impactful.
contagious.
It totally is. It totally is. So I do that. And then I also offer for women consulting, in terms of, are they interested in starting a business, or have they started a business and they're really struggling with certain parts of it, whether
Hmm.
it's getting it to the next level, it's building out a team, it's creating some processes, like just some ops stuff that maybe when you're in the trenches, you just don't see.
Yeah.
And and that's really where I can help with my services. Certainly marketing and branding is something that I love, and I get often asked about that. So that's some of the stuff that I'm doing. And then, we have the book, Graced by Grit, too, which
Hmm.
is a great read, especially for women that are interested in starting a business. And also women that I think have been in business will get a kick out of it, because there's great stories in there, and really speaks to, I think, what resonated with you was that value system, right? We
Hmm.
really tried to make sure that the book encompassed what our value system was as people, but also how we wanted to run a business, and the people that we were attracting then as a result. And you hear some really cool stories in there of women unexpectedly, how they sort of came into our lives through the work we were doing with the brand, and what value they had, and then also what that created for them, what they've created for themselves. So really cool stories about women that have overcome, or sort of didn't expect to work at 50 years old, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
found a second career, and all sorts of things like that.
And I think the cool part is as well there is, even if, like, when you're running your company right now, for our listeners, or you're working for another company, is how do you share those unique stories and that diversity within the community of your current culture, or if you're developing a community online, like
Mhm.
learning from the way that Kate was able to not only just build a legacy brand, but also a community that was much bigger than just, I mean, not to put it super plain, like, it's just athletic wear. It was that
Right.
plus more. And as
Mhm.
well as, what are you able to do? What are you able to produce right now where, yeah, there's a level of commitment to keep the business and sustainability going, but what are the stories that we can highlight? Who are the people that we can definitely, be champions of, and how are we able to spread a word that's a mission, that we can all be inclusive and support one another? And I like that phrase that you use, not stepping on each other's shoulders, but helping each other build up.
I think that's so important. And, the other piece of work that I'm part of right now too, is I am on the board of directors for HYLETE, which was the company that acquired Graced by Grit. And that is an athletic apparel brand, and is a really great brand that, has an incredible team internally. And some of my work with that has been, I knew the in and out of the day to day, and now I'm at the board level. And so having that knowledge of day to day is really helping, because we've had a lot of transitions, certainly, COVID and transitioning people to be all at home 100%. Our team is fully remote, but also raising capital for HYLETE and looking, we have over 5,500 investors because we did a tremendous amount of crowdfunding to get to where we are today. So managing that. So with all of that comes a next level, sort of business experience that I'm gaining, but also being able to lend all that like storytelling to the brand. And so part of my work on the board is the PR side. So I do a lot of that with, finding people that are out within the community, both on a national level as well as locally here in San Diego, that will really benefit from learning about HYLETE and representing that, and making sure that what that looks like is what I want to see too, right? That it represents not only the company that I started, but it also represents the company that acquired me. And that's everything from diversity in marketing to that storytelling piece. And we have created a tremendous amount of content. And one thing that HYLETE has always done from the beginning is build a strong community. And it's community first. The community often are the people that are deciding if we even make a product. So they get to vote when we've designed a product and say, yes, this is something worthwhile making. We'll put our money behind it, or nope, we're not going to. So we've always made sure that the community feels like they're part of what we're building, hence all the investors too.
Yeah, no, I completely that's huge. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just not just one thing. It's multiple things happening at once. So I have one final question. This might be a silver bullet question, but I know there's themes. There's connections and there's themes, but this is a big question, but it can be condensed with one theme. You talk about community with your customers, the brand. You talk about community with investors, the crowdfunding. You talk about community in regards to the social impact, the diversity, the inclusion, as well as, helping women, helping girls. When it comes to building community, let's say I'm a listener or I want to build community right now. What would be a common theme that you've seen work well when you build all those different types of communities, obviously for different outcomes, that our listeners can take action or at least start creating an idea board around?
I would say it's really important to take a step back and go, okay, what is this community I want to create? Like, who are these people that I want to be in it, right? And what does that look like? And I think a great exercise is to really create that, it's whether it's a storyboard of pictures of what you want those people to be, or it's literally writing out, okay, these are people that are between these ages. This is where they primarily live. This is the activities they love to do, et cetera, et cetera. It's almost like when you're building out your brand identity, right? You're doing that, but it's what you're building it out in a bigger picture, right? And then it's going one step further. What do you want that community to feel like? Right? What do you want to be giving them? What are they giving you back too? So what is that feeling that ties the community to you and creates the loyalty? Because I think when you can discover what those two things are, so who's the community, what's the feelings that surrounding it, then you can start to do, okay, how do we build this out? What are campaigns we can start to utilize that's going to make this truly authentic? Because that's ultimately at the core of it, right?
Yeah.
If you're trying to build something and you're like, hey, I'm a guy that loves to eat, McDonald's every single day, but I'm selling, veggie burgers or, whatever it is, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's often how, when people are building businesses too, it's like, you need to take a look at like, what is it, that product that you're selling? Are you living that? Are you surrounding yourself with people that believe in that? And then from there, what is that community going to look like too, right? That you want to feed, that you also want to give you. I mean, not only are buying your product, but you want them coming back. You want them coming back for that service. You want them telling people about it. You want them feeling really great because of you. So I don't know if that answered the question.
That was probably the silver bullet. I didn't know you can shoot. That was
There you go. Yeah, I can.
Hey, no, not you and Jennifer. That was a big question. But I think going back to it specifically, I think that the communication or the conversation right now will always be about community. But I think actually moving forward post everything that's going on, I don't think any company is really going to survive without community.
I agree.
And you touched upon something very subtly that it's also another theme that I think is really important is even if you're a solopreneur, a small team, or a consultant, or working within a business, when you're working or creating a product or service and it's inauthentic to who you are, that's the journey matters significantly. But I think that what we're going to be seeing moving forward as a theme or a trend in the future is that a lot more businesses are going to be spiraling around core values that people follow and love. And those businesses that are actually aligned from the executive team, the manager team to the implementer team, all supported, those are the ones that are really going to thrive. So I love that you touched on that subtly, but I love that you touched on that.
I couldn't agree more. And I think we're seeing it happening now. And we're certainly seeing the companies that aren't thriving as a result of them not doing any of those things,
Yeah.
right? Not being true to what either they've said or they just haven't created a culture that is something people want to stay in, and it's being exposed, right? And I think it's really, really interesting. And I think the next generation, I see it with my daughters where they're not going to do anything that they can't stand behind.
Yeah.
That is not in their wheelhouse.
We gotta watch out.
Taught by us. Absolutely not. And I think we've all done things. Certainly, as you get older too, and you have life experience and you look back and you go, shoot, I did do something that I did not want to do. And I had to do it because of whatever, A, B, Z, who knows? I remember I took a job because I had to put food on the table, and
I know that.
needed it every day. But you know what? That's what drove me to network and to get out there and to self-discover and to connect with people, to figure out what it was that I would do that would make me feel great every single day. So, you have those moments in life that you're going to have to suck it up, but you certainly, ultimately, if you can utilize those moments, they can be really productive times.
Exactly. And if you're smart listening to this, you're looking at your core values and saying, am I attracting the right person who is hungry, who wants to come here, who I can support and I can help them grow?
Absolutely. You got it.
I love it. Well, Kate, I love having you on the show today. What's the best place that visitors can go and thank you for the episode and check and learn a little bit more about you?
I'd love for them to visit GRACEDBYGRIT.com and learn about the foundation. They can certainly contact me through a link there. It's just contact us, and I get those emails too. So I'd love to hear from anybody that's listening that way. It'd be great. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook too. We've got some great storytelling that we're doing on there for the foundation.
I love it. And that'll be in the show notes as well. Kate, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. Loved it.